Yo, what it is, everybody? Thanks for tuning back into another episode here on the Speed Bug channel. And y'all know it's been a minute since I made a video, probably over a month or so. And just been doing a lot of stuff, you know, personal in my life, taking some time off here, YouTube. Again, y'all know this is not my full-time gig. I just do this as a hobby. And when I want to look back and stuff like that and see some of my videos and some of the things I've done, of course, as well with progression, to see, you know, where you started from to where you kind of finished off and ended up, and then you take that and move those skills onto the next new set into life. So, but I don't know how much I'll be back on it right away, but I have taken some time off and I have decided to not make YouTube such as a major priority. But yes, I know a lot of you all that are here for the motorcycles. I still will tend to do a lot of the motorcycle reviews, and it doesn't matter, you know, it could be with the Grom or hell, even helmets and stuff like that. We still got the cars and stuff like that, but the main focus here today, as you can see behind me, where that bike always used to sit, there is no more 2020 BMW. And I have officially sold that motorcycle. So we have the old Gromsky still here, we have the GSXR 600, and we have the GSXR 1000R sitting still over there. Now stay tuned for the other video about that, about the made the best bike win. Still have the Trans Am, we still have the Corvette, we did the Denali and the race car trailer and stuff like that. The Camaro is not here and you guys haven't seen that. But that car, if you don't follow me on Instagram, that car has been wrecked. It is probably pretty much totaled, and I will go into a further detail on that video as well. But anyway, the 2020 BMW, the bike is gone. And I know all of y'all are really gonna ask, well, what the hell is wrong with you? Why did you sell it? You know, what's up with it? You know, was it another Panigale V4? Did that shit break in the garage before you can even get it out? You know, anything like that? The answer is no. No. And I'm still gonna ride on them Ducatis and stuff like that, even when I get another one. Cause I'll get another one and I'll still tell you, that shit could be still brand new at the dealership. And it'd be broken there too. But no. My S1000 did not break. It didn't have any major reliability issues or anything like that. And for someone that has had numerous bikes and ridden all kinds of bikes, and when you ride a bike just one time, you can get a good feel for it and say, okay, I'm going to test ride it, I'm going to buy it or something like that. But when you start to live with it and live with the quirks and stuff like that, it's kind of like individuals that the best thing that I can kind of relate to it is the people that have always lived in like the southern states and the southern climate or warmer climate, and then they never lived or seen snow, or when they do see snow, they go and visit it. And when you live with it and when you go visit and play in it are two different things. And it's kind of like test riding the bike and you're like, all right, cool, I like it, I'm gonna buy it, because you got that adrenaline and that excitement. Majority of the time, I never ever buy the bike right after I test ride it, because it really gives me some time to really think, is this shit that I actually really want? And obviously, majority of the time, you cannot test ride crotch rockets. There's only been one or two exceptions I've ever seen with private dealerships where they've actually allowed you to do so. But coming from the old BMW and the new one, I knew it kind of exactly where it was going to be. But then again, since you can't test ride it, which this one I couldn't, you kind of have to go into it buying it blind. Now, since I did go into buying it blind, I knew there was going to be some things from watching, not other YouTubers or things like that, actually watching what the manufacturer said. Now, after I watch what the manufacturer said, after they go through their hype bullshit and everything like that, then I start to watch other reviewers. But however, I was like the second one, I think, in Florida to actually get the BMW, and was still one of the early few ones in the US to actually still have that bike. Again, long story short, I had no mechanical issues or anything really with mine, but BMW, when you sit there and really pay attention to the things that they were trying to say, they really wanted to make the bike a lot faster and more competitive on the track, and they're crotch rockets. You know, they're designed and bred on the racetrack. And then we put lights on them and take them to the street and try and ride them like they're some type of docile machine, like some Harley or something like that. Well, that's fine. The other outgoing generation bike just was a much better mannered street bike. And when you sacrifice a lot of street manners, you sacrifice a lot of track manners in the opposite direction, and vice versa. So when they said they wanted to really make their bike more competitive and faster, yeah, you can always say they've had the most horsepower, but they've really never been the most competitive, even in like World Superbike and stuff like that. Yeah, they can really run down other bikes on like Isle of Man with those long straightaways and stuff like that. But again, they wanted to have the bike more competitive and be able to compete with some of the other big brands that are out there. So, and that's exactly what they did. And when I rode that bike and started dipping it around some turns and stuff like that, after getting a few hundred miles on it, even after unlocking it, that's exactly what they did. And they did it very, very, very well. And I can't really say anything bad about it, to be honest. The downside to it is that it lost a lot of its street manners. And by losing a lot of those street manners, just really didn't make the bike so fun to ride. Then you have some of the other things with the tech and stuff like that. As I've mentioned before, yeah, the screen was cool, the Bluetooth, you know, all these other things. Yeah, that was really awesome and stuff like that. And the adaptive suspension was freaking awesome and amazing. But again, you had the hard seat, and again, you have a hard seat for racing, so you can have feedback and feel, and you're kind of gliding your butt, you know, over that seat, as opposed to, let's say, a big cushiony Suzuki seat like that you would have here, where that bike isn't going to, I mean, this bike, that's not this bike, this seat is not going to provide the exact same amount of feedback that you're going to want on the racetrack as to a hard seat. So I get it. Yes, you can change the seats, you can do, you know, Louis Moto or restuff it or anything like that, but I didn't want to be bothered with that. And there was just a few, you know, many other things as well. So the way the rear sets were, the handlebar positioning grips, I did like that it was wider. I did like it was part of the triple tree and stuff like that. But again, the bike was set up very much for the track use, and that's what they went out and that's what they delivered. And you could feel it a lot when you dip down into those corners and really start to really crack on that throttle. And when you're just kind of cruising around and you don't want to act like an ass or anything on the street, the bike just really wasn't shaped and mannered for that. And you could really feel like a lot of the R1M, the Ducati characteristics, that where those bikes excel very well in the leans and on the racetracks and stuff like that. It was kind of how they were bred. So that's pretty much my synopsis. The best thing that the bike did have for the street was the adaptive suspension, that you could really make it hard and firm with the click of a button. Not that you really couldn't not do it on the outgoing generation. You could do it, just obviously not as easy, but it just, the suspension was, you know, it's Gen 2. It was just a hell of a lot better on the other one. But it's again, it's the overall bike, the riding position, the way the rear sets were, how you how you lean down, where your handle grips are, how you get tired, where your hips are, where your feet are, how far the gear positionings are changed, how the quick shifter works. I know a lot of you are also waiting for me to touch base on the dead spots between second, third, and fourth gear. Yeah, was it annoying? Absolutely. I understand that it has to be done for emissions compliance and stuff like that. And yeah, that really did suck. And it really kind of did piss me off a little bit at first, but you kind of got around it. If you're kind of riding on the street, you really didn't need to nail it or anything like that. And I knew the bike was never going to create torque like the GSXR or some of the other V4 style motorcycles, but it was, I was able to be on a bike that was 100% flashed and unlocked, and then just obviously a factory unlocked bike, you know, with no limiters or anything like that. And you could definitely tell a difference, even with the shift cam and stuff like that. But it was obviously still no GSXR and V4 torque during that mid-range. But up top, you know, again, where you're riding on the racetrack and those upper RPMs where the bike is screaming, you know, above 12,000, you can hang out between 12 and, you know, 13, 14, 15,000 all the time and keep those ratios close. It really does make a difference, and that's where that bike really excelled. And another reason, you know, why my R1M was such a sweet bike and I loved, as much as it kills me to say that because you guys know I hate Yamaha, but that bike again too was a sick bike to ride, and I really loved it. It was just a little too much for the street, but I sold that bike primarily because to get rid of the Ducatis when I had those at the time. But that bike still, it fell in the very exact same category as the outgoing 2020 BMW that I just had. Very racy for the street, just not for me. And if I'm gonna get that bike, I would probably use it as more of a dedicated track bike, or hell, even a Ducati, because if it's on the racetrack, well then I don't care, because I'm going to inspect it and take it apart all the time and stuff like that, because it's my race bike. I'm not going to primarily use that motorcycle for the street, and I just want to be able to get on it and go. So other individuals, as far as other topics and issues, you know, with the gearbox, other individuals have said they've had some issues with that. For the people that are watching that have that bike, the gearbox was issued for a recall overseas. It was known to the individuals here in the United States, but it was not an official issued recall. Of course, at this time, let me just quote, at this time, and at the time I also sold my bike, but if there was an issue with the gearbox, then you were instructed by BMW to bring it in. A couple people said they've had their carbon wheels cracking, this, that, the other. I obviously never had any issues with them, but that was pretty much it. The only issue that I ever had, I guess, was when I first made that issue with the front wheel speed sensor, and I just kind of moved it over it a little bit and then never had that little issue. That took me about a whole 2.5 minutes to fix. Other than that, I didn't really have any issues with the bike, but it was just a little bit too racy for me to ride around on the street. I did not enjoy it. I thought it was very uncomfortable. The other outgoing bike was much more street mannered. And for the ones that I'm going to sum this video up and tell all of you, if you're looking to get the new 2020 bike, does it have a lot of awesome features? Absolutely, yes. The LEDs, the display, everything like that, it's freaking awesome. It's amazing. But if you're going to primarily ride this motorcycle on the street, you will probably not be very happy with it. You're going to like the outgoing model, the 19 in the US, 18 everywhere else. From the 15, I highly recommend you get the previous generation. Especially you could pick it up at a hell of a good discount compared to what it would cost brand new. You mean, you could probably get a used one for 12, 15 grand. And it's hard to argue what that bike does and the performance value with the electronics that it's going to give you. But again, don't sleep on the GSXR either, or hell, even a ZX14. But if you can get away with that old display. But they have some fixes and stuff like that for that now. But that's going to wrap it up. I'm not going to get too off topic. And so yeah, the 2020 is gone. I don't miss it. I don't have anything in my line of sight to replace it for now. And the GSXR is here to stay for some time. Let me know questions, comments, or anything below. And we'll see you for another episode here on the Speedboat channel. Peace.